Welcome to the Athena Wellness Podcast, the show that invites you to take a seat around the community fire and listen to stories that inspire. I'm your host, Kathy Robinson, author, coach, and founder of Athena Wellness, a company that's dedicated to supporting you on your journey to live more wholeheartedly. Hello, and welcome to episode 84. Thanks so much for joining me for this shortened Wellness Wednesday episode, a little midweek boost to help keep your warrior vibe high. Today I'm joined once again by author and sailor Paul Trammell, who shares his writing process that includes his daily ship log and recording voice memos on his phone while at the helm. Paul also shares his thoughts on the importance of writing discipline and self-publishing. And now on to the show. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Once again, I'm joined by author and sailor Paul Trammell. Welcome back, Paul. Thank you for being here.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you.
So, Paul, I'm fascinated as somebody who has written and published a book as well. I would love to hear a little bit about your writing practice. How did you write your first book, and what's your writing practice like today?
The first book, Alcoholics Not Anonymous, A Modern Way to Quit Drinking, came about because I was open on Facebook about my journey through sobriety. And a lot of people started asking me for advice. Strangers would find me on Facebook Messenger and send me a message and tell me that they wanted to quit drinking and they didn't know how, and how do you do it, and how do you deal with this situation and that situation. And that was as helpful as I could be to these people. And some of them I communicated with for a long time, regularly, wrote a lot back and forth on Messenger. And at some point I realized if I just went back and wrote down all these messages, all I have to do is copy and paste, and copy right from Messenger and paste on the Word. Then I'll have all this advice I've given people. And then if I just organize that, I could probably organize it into a book. And that's what I did. I took all the advice I'd given people, put it into Word, started reading it, writing it. And I didn't use that directly as the book. I wrote a book, but that's how it started.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a really easy subject for me to write about because it's me. It's what goes on in my head. And as soon as I start thinking about particular situations that drinkers have to deal with, it's easy for me to come up with stuff to write about. And that's how the first book was written. The second, third, and fourth books were sailing nonfiction. And those all come from a daily, sailors have to keep a daily log. It's actually law, maritime law. We have to keep a daily log when we're sailing, just keeping track of what's going on and what the conditions are and what direction we're going in and what's happening. And those actually end up in court sometimes if there's an accident. So we have to do that. So I just write more extensively in my log, my daily log. I write about what I'm feeling and what things look like and what interesting things happened and, what's going through my head today. And I also break out my phone and use the recording feature on the phone. You can just speak right into your phone and look at the stars and talk about them. Look out at the blue ocean and just say whatever comes into your mind. I learned that from Bernard Matessier. He kept a tape recorder on his boat, and he would talk into his tape recorder. And that's one of his methods. So I borrowed that from him. And that's a fairly easy way to write a nonfiction, is to just daily keep a log of if you know you're going to go on some cool adventure that can be a book, just keep a daily log and write as much as you can in it. And then when the adventure is over, sit down at the computer and transfer your notebook onto Word, and then you have a rough draft.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spend the next year reading that and modifying it and editing it and adding to it. And for instance, you might write down something like, it was a beautiful day, I was happy, the sky was blue. And then you come back and you read that and you're like, okay, what was really beautiful about that day?
Right.
And then you write a paragraph about why it was beautiful. Okay, well, what do you mean I was happy? You can't write I was happy in a book. Like that doesn't work. So you get to think deeply, well, what made me happy on that day? Well, then there's another page, and that's how the nonfiction books come about. It's a good year of editing and rewriting and explaining and organizing. It's the fun work happens while the adventure is happening. The rest of the year is work. You got to sit down every day for maybe. I mean, I would very often. Typical day for me writing, for instance, Journey to the Ragged Islands would be. I was working a regular job then, so I'd come home from work. I lived at a marina, so I'd come home from work. I would hit the swimming pool, swim some laps, and go up into the clubhouse where it was air conditioned, break out my computer, and spend from like 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. 3 hours of writing every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I'll have a couple of days where I'll say, I'm just going to treat it like a 9-to-5 job today. I'm going to think of this as my carpentry job. I can build a house for 8 hours, no problem. I do it 5 days a week, 8 hours of work. Is this as hard as that? No, you're sitting down in air conditioning with snacks.
Right.
Like, it's not hard. It's just mentally it's hard, but is it physically hard? No, not even. So I kind of go through that mental process to tell myself, just sit here all day today in this comfy chair with this nice view in the air conditioning and work on your book. And so you have to tell yourself, you have to be a self-starter. You have to figure out how to motivate yourself to sit down and do it, because it takes a lot of hours. As you know, I think it takes somewhere on the order of 1,000 hours at the computer to write a book. And that's kind of a rough guess that I made during one of my books. I tried to estimate how long one of them took to write. It was somewhere on that order. So it's a lot of rewriting, and then you've got to find people to send it off to have them read it and tell you what they think, and try to find people that can edit it. You can pay for editors. If you want real editing, you can pay people, or if you get lucky and you know someone who's a good editor, they can, but that needs to happen too. Otherwise, because you can self-publish a terrible book on Amazon. There's no gatekeeper.
Right.
You can self-publish a book that's awful. No one's going to stop you. It's not going to sell though. So what's the point? You need to go that extra step and have other people edit the book for you. And the better editors you find, the better your book's going to be. No doubt about that.
It's quite a leap you made from nonfiction then to fiction.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Those are two completely different genres there. I tell you, it's pretty difficult to write a good fictional book. The first book I wrote, the first fiction novel I wrote, I just winged it. I didn't study fiction writing. I just winged it, and I wrote a book that is loosely based on my band's first tour. Very loosely based. It's very much fictional. It's called Dead Flowers on Wednesday. It was very fun to write. It has not sold well. I'm sure I made every mistake in the book, as far as how to actually write a fictional novel. But I had a good time doing it, and some people loved it. I've had some of the reviews on it are great. I've written another novel that's not quite finished yet called The Gold Box, and for this one, I have been studying how to actually write fiction. There's quite a bit to learn, and there's some great books about it. For instance, there's a great one called How to Write Fiction, and it's basically a textbook. I've read it twice while writing The Gold Box, and it's extremely helpful. I mean, extremely helpful. There's a lot of rules and tricks and things that you need to know to make your book a lot better than it would be otherwise. Mm-hmm. It's a creative process, but just like playing guitar, I practice scales every day. And that's, you have to be in the scale. You can't just play random notes and make a song. You have to play a song in a key. There are rules you have to follow. You have to be in time as well. A lot of musicians never learn timing, and they had this huge disadvantage because no one ever taught them what the difference between a 16th note and an 8th note is. They can play it, but they don't really know how to count it out. It's just crippling. It's the same with writing. You can go your life as a writer and never really make it because you never learned something. It's the same with surfing. It's the same with everything. I'm here in Panama trying to learn how to surf barrels, barreling waves. I've been terrible at it my whole life, and I'm coming to realize Yeah, nobody ever taught me how, and I never studied how. I never watched videos how. There's these little things you have to do. If you don't know to stick your right arm in the wave when you're dropping into a right barrel, you're not going to get barreled. You're going to get hit by the lip every time. It's just one little thing. Put your arm here. It's the same with writing. You need to know various rules about point of view and about tense, and there's the plot. There's a whole lot to learn, and I am trying to learn it now, and I'm realizing it's making me a lot better of a writer. Yeah, writing fiction is a lot more difficult than writing nonfiction to me. Writing nonfiction is just, I did it. Here's what I did. Here's what I felt like. This is what it made me think about and feel. And I try and bring the reader into the scene. It just comes naturally. Mm-hmm. Fiction is way more difficult, I think, to me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Paul, this has been such a lovely conversation, because I feel like what I feel so inspired by when I speak to you is this sense of deepening in life, of following your curiosity, of learning, but there's discipline around this as well. And there's a mindfulness around this as well. And it is just incredibly, no matter, people don't have to sell their houses and go buy a sailboat. We can all do this in our lives. Mm-hmm. And the impact that it has, not only in ourselves, but on others, can be tremendous. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. I really think that this is going to be very inspiring to the people who listen to it. And I thank you so much for your time today.
Good. Well, thank you. And I hope it is inspiring. That's how I want to affect other people, inspire them to get out, chase their dreams, step outside their comfort zone, do new and interesting things, better themselves, learn about how to live the best life, your best life. It takes thought, it takes conscious thought, it takes discipline, and it's instantly rewarding.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being a model. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I know there are many ways you can spend your time. Thank you for choosing to spend it with me. Until our paths cross again, be kind to yourself and show your warrior spirit some love. If you know anyone who could benefit from today's episode, please pass it on. And many thanks for supporting the show by subscribing and leaving a review. It means a lot, and it helps others find their way to our circle. If you'd like to access the show notes, have a question you'd like addressed on a future episode, or would like a transcript of this episode, visit www.athenawellness.com/podcast. Until next time, be well.